There is a vacuum of leadership in today's modern parenting. And what happens when there's a vacuum? Well, nature hates it and something else rushes in to fill it. And that is going to be true in your home too, if you're not careful about this one. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Avital. I'm the founder of HiFam. I'm the mother of 5, and I'm here on a mission to help you to create a strong family culture. And in today's day and age, that's pretty countercultural. And so how do we do that? Well, today I'm going to outline one core mindset, one key belief that you absolutely must adopt about yourself as a parent if you want to create a strong family culture that is built on your values and your vision for the future. So you might ask me, and in fact, many parents do, what do I do if I don't really have a vision for the future? What do I do if I'm not really sure what I want for my children? Or you might even feel that you're not in a position to even say, who am I to say whatever my kids want? Most parents today in the modern world don't have some kind of a legacy, some kind of pathway, a religion, a faith, a set of values, a patriotism, or anything that they want to imbibe for their children, that they want to pass on to their children. Many modern parents don't feel that they're carrying some torch from a previous generation. Like they've let go of many of the things that their grandparents' generation maybe died for, or at least lived for. And so many modern parents are really just stuck with only 2 things that they want for their kids. They just want their kids to be happy and healthy. And on the surface of things, that sounds great. It sounds accepting. It sounds open-minded. It sounds like you're not trying to control your child or to use them and live vicariously through them. It sounds like you are ultimately unconditionally loving of whatever they might be, and you really just want the best for them, right? Just for them to be happy and healthy. What could possibly be wrong with that? Well, there's nothing wrong with wanting your children to be happy and healthy, but we do have to understand what that actually means. How do people become happy and healthy? What is the pathway forward? And so today I want to talk about this vacuum that is actually generated by our lack of articulation around what we mean when we say happy and healthy. What are the steps that we want and strive for and yearn for our children? What are our ambitions on behalf of our child? Can we articulate a little bit more of a path, a little bit more clarity? Can we create the contours of what a happy and healthy life looks like? Inside my studio membership, we talk a lot about how to become inspiring leaders. And inevitably, if you're in a Western culture, if you're in a modern environment, especially if it's secular, you will often feel like you're not sure what you're leading your child towards. Many of the parents in there have asked me, what if I don't know what I want for them? I don't have some kind of clear vision about what they should do when they grow up, about their job, about their health, about where they should live, or who they should marry, or if they should get married at all. I feel like, who am I to say? I just want them to be happy and healthy, as we've already covered. And my first point that I want to make to you, if this is you, if you feel like, I don't even know what I want for my child, I've never really thought about that, and I don't think I'm in a position to decide for them, then I want to call a little bit of tough love BS, okay? A friendly, gentle BS. Why is this BS? Well, you might be sitting there thinking, I really don't know what I want for them. I really don't have any ambitions on their behalf. I really just want whatever's best for them, and I want them to figure that out. Maybe you're even the product of a home that was too controlling, that came on really heavy with a very strict and severe set of expectations. We all know these cultures and these families where the child can choose between being a cardiologist and a radiologist, and there's not much choice and not much awareness, acceptance, or respect for the child's idiosyncrasies, personal preferences, their belief system, or anything that they might develop within themselves. We all know sad stories of families who became estranged, who abandoned and neglected their child and walked away from relationships because of things like sexual orientation or career choices, or the decision not to carry on the family business or to leave the religion. These certainly scare us. These are not the stories that we want to repeat, I imagine, in our own homes. We want our children to feel that they have a lot of leeway, that there's a lot of room for their personal, individual development and preferences, and that we're not here to dictate for them in a tyrannical manner how they should live their lives. But swinging too far in the other direction leads to this vacuum that I mentioned. It leads to parents who hold their hands up and say, Who am I to say? I don't have any preferences, whatever you want. There is no one way that's better than the other way. This is that moral and cultural relativism that has become so popular over the last few decades in the West, where we say any choice is as good as another. There is no hierarchy. Nothing is superior or inferior. There is just pros and cons to every decision. And I'm not here to dictate or to project my values onto you, God forbid. You're your unique individual, and it's all about individual liberty and personal preference. Now, when you swing too far in that direction, what happens is this kind of blank canvas philosophy. We see children as a completely blank canvas. They just pop out into the world, a whole new being, unlinked from previous generations. They don't have any torch to carry forward. There's no expectation put on them to honor their ancestors or to continue their heritage. It is a completely fresh start. And there's something exciting and liberating about that, to be sure. But what happens when there's too much freedom in any area is that we can also feel really lost, really loose, really unrooted, really like we're floating, like we have no ties, no roots, and like we don't have direction in this life. And that creates a vacuum of direction and leadership, which will be filled, and we'll talk about that more in a little bit. Now, those parents are doing this out of love. They don't want to burden their children with preconceived notions, archaic ideas, patriarchal expectations. They think they are fully liberating and freeing their child to just be whoever they are in the world. Unfortunately, what they're also doing is unmooring their child. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more soon. So what do you need to know about becoming a leader, about deciding that you are going to offer your child some guidance in this world, that you are going to help shape and mold them in a specific direction? Well, number one is that although you might think, I don't know what I want for my child, just for them to be happy and healthy, you probably do know what you don't want for your child. And I know it can sometimes feel uncomfortable, judgmental, politically incorrect to express the things that you don't want for your child. So let me do it for you. I'm gonna guess that you don't want your child to become a criminal, that you don't want your child to be homeless. You don't want them to be lonely and isolated and have no one to love or who loves them. You don't want them to be sick and unhealthy or addicted. You don't want them to have any mental illnesses either. Now, if we know all of the things that we don't want for our children, it's actually not that hard to work our way backwards and reverse engineer what we do want. If you don't want your child to be homeless, my guess is that you actually would prefer that they find a good place to live, a roof over their head, perhaps a permanent shelter, or even to own a home. If you don't want them to be isolated, you likely want them to find community and deep friendships. You probably want them to have a lifelong romantic partner that is built on trust and love and chemistry. You probably want them to have a job that pays them pretty well, that gives them dignity and allows them to live the lifestyle that they want, with some modicum of financial independence. You might even want more. If you get really honest with yourself, you might even have a hope, a dream, and a wish that your child will find meaning and continuity in the religious pathway that they've received from home, or in the values or patriotism. You probably want them to continue some of the things that you most believe in and hold dear to you. And when you're really quiet in the dark recesses of your mind, in the most secret corners of your heart, you might be allowed to admit out loud, just to yourself, in a whisper, that you'd love for them to have their own family one day and raise children as well. Not because you want to become a grandparent, that too, but because you believe that this is a worthwhile project and a good way to being happy and healthy. You see, all of these desires that we have for our children are born out of a love for them and out of our life experience. So as you can see, by process of elimination, you can probably feel out the edges of what you do want for your child. Meaningful relationships, great friendships, physical health, financial stability. It's not rocket science. So have I convinced you that we can maybe upgrade your happy and healthy to something slightly more specific? To something that can actually give them some kind of mind map, some kind of image of what it is we're aiming for. Why do we need to work at math in school? Why is it important that I'm polite and friendly to our guests? When we have a long-term vision and we provide the leadership to our child to show them the promised land that we're trying to take them to, the things that we do at home start to make sense. They're not just arbitrary. It's not just rules that we read in a book that children should be polite or they should do their homework. It's because these things are in service of a life that is meaningful. So why can't we just leave it up to our children and let them decide? Well, the truth is that humans aren't built to be a blank canvas, to have all of our options open before us. We know this from really interesting research that when you have too many choices, you do face a very real thing called choice paralysis or decision fatigue, or overwhelm, right? When you've been into a shop that has 30 different types of shampoo, you may be less likely to be able to make a choice. You kind of get stuck like a deer in headlights and you're not sure which direction to choose. But if there's only 2 or 3 shampoos, then it's much easier to choose between them. We don't want no choice. But here's the thing, we kind of do know, we kind of have cracked the code on how much choice humans can really take. If we have no choices, if we offer our child no decision, no autonomy, no sense of ownership and empowerment in their own life, like you could be a pharmacist or a pharmacist, then that child is going to feel suffocated. They're going to feel that they have been controlled and that they don't have any autonomy. But if you say, kid, you could be whatever you want, the world's your oyster, whatever you try at, you'll succeed, you might be thinking that you're offering them this wow, this wide horizon, this brilliant sense that someone believes in them and that the sky's the limit. But inadvertently, you're probably overwhelming them. This probably contributes to our failure to launch, to the elongated childhood, to the fact that kids today are becoming adults and still living with their parents and still kind of forever young. Because having every option open to us and no direction or judgment or expectation on the part of our parents who raised us is very overwhelming. No one is able to then make a choice because all the choices are open ahead of them and every choice feels like FOMO, I'm missing out on everything else. So we don't want to create estrangement, we don't want to create a controlling atmosphere, we want to respect that they are their own individuals and they are going to do things that sometimes don't quite align with exactly our personal code of how to live. And we've seen that, and that's not what we want. But swinging too far in the other direction can be really overwhelming and leave our children feeling like no one really cares. No one really has a stake in their future. No one really gives them direction, and no one is teaching them. Now, you might be saying to me, but Avital, who am I to say? My child is their own person. I've made my own mistakes. I believe what I believe, but they need to discover for themselves. They need to figure out for themselves. And to that, I would say, who are you to say? Who are you not to say? How could you possibly hold this back from your child? If you've cracked some codes in your years of experience, and I bet you have, if you have a fully developed prefrontal cortex, legal responsibility, actual accountability to a family, if you've built a home, if you've built a career, if you've made mistakes in your life, if you've been on spiritual journeys, then you're someone to say. And if you're someone's parent, then who are you not to offer them their inheritance? I mean, if you had $1 million and you would say, I'm not sharing it with my child, they just need to start from scratch. They need to build it all on their own. I would think, that's strange. I think parents should try to give their kids a leg up in life. Not that we want to give them everything so that they never have to work at all, but we want to help them. We want to support them. There's a natural desire for each generation to want the next generation to be able to build off of what we've already done. If we've dug wells, we don't expect our children to dig a new well. We are thankful that the years of labor, toil, sweat, blood, and tears that went into digging that well will now nurture and nourish the generations to come, and they won't have to go through the same pain. The same should be true of wisdom. A well of wisdom that you have dug in your life should not be withheld from your child for them to have to go and dig their own. That's why I say it's their inheritance. You came by this knowledge, by this experience the hard way. Maybe it was handed down to you from generations prior. You've learned about what constitutes a happy and healthy life. And by the way, I know happy is a little bit of an unhelpful term here, right? We might think about meaning or about joy, but let's just stick with happy and healthy as the tagline that most parents say they want for their children. Okay, you want that for your child, but how are they going to get there? The truth is that many, many young adults today are not happy or healthy. They are riddled with anxiety and depression, with addiction, and with isolation. And so what that tells me is that they have not been given a blueprint, a set of steps, a pathway to what constitutes a happy and healthy life. I'll give you some examples from my own parenting with me and my husband. Over the years, my husband and I have had countless conversations about what we think is best for people in general, what we think is best in a society, what we think is best specifically for our children. What kind of choices do they need to make? How do they need to build themselves to be the most successful they can be? Not necessarily in terms of how much money they'll make, although that's important too, but in terms of how they can be the best spouse they can be, find the best partner for them, build a household that feels stable and meaningful and fruitful and really gives them that sense of joy and health, and create work that is useful in the world, that gives them dignity, that puts a roof over their head. Now, I know AI calls a lot of that into question, and stay tuned on this channel because I'm going to be going deep into AI in the upcoming weeks. But even with or without AI being a source of their future financial stability, I want to just say that you do have some insight and some wisdom into what it takes to lead a good life. And my goal in this video is to convince you not to withhold that from your child. Now, if you feel like, yes, I want to create that vision, I want to get clear, I want to craft it, but I'm not sure how to craft it, how to convey it to my children, how to share with them something that's inspiring and aspirational and guidance on how to be, but without being overbearing or without causing them to just rebel against me and ignore everything I have to say, then I want to tell you that that's exactly what I do inside the studio. The High Fam Studio is my annual membership where we have members from all over the world, all walks of life, every major religion or no religion, adoptive families, homeschooling families, you name it, all different types of families. But what unites us is that we're all there to become the best leaders we can be for our family. I see you, the parent, as a CEO. You've started something. This is your startup. You've founded something. And you need to get really clear on what your values are, what your goals are, where you're driving the ship. What is the North Star of this family? Why did I have children? What do I want to bring them towards? What kind of culture am I trying to build? It's my personal belief that this is how we impact the world in the most powerful way, because you're literally raising the next generation and building the future. But many of us in the modern world don't feel equipped to do that. We feel squirmish and squeamish and uncomfortable and hesitant and doubtful. But the truth is that if you're not leading your children morally, intellectually, in terms of just guidance for their life, then you kind of become a glorified chauffeur / babysitter. Like, you're providing food and shelter, cool, but this is what parenting actually is. This is the added value of you being there for your children, of you choosing which books you read, what kind of vacations you go on, what kind of conversations you have at dinner time, how to handle it if they lie, or if they're rejected, or if they get sick. You're the one who's shaping their mindset, who's shaping the way they view the world and themselves. That's leadership. And the truth is, and here's a really important part, so if I've lost you, if you're multitasking, come back to me. Children need leadership. Children need leaders. Somewhere in our modern day parenting, we got the idea that children are these little gurus, that they're born wise, that they're born knowing exactly what's right for them, that they can self-regulate, and that they can put boundaries for themselves, and they can make their own decisions about themselves. And nothing could be further from the truth. Children are born fragile and needy, dependent on us for their every survival. With time, the goal of childhood is that we, as their parents and leaders, are able to slowly transfer onto them more and more responsibility for themselves. A baby can't do anything for themselves. They can't get from A to B, they can't feed themselves, they can't clean themselves. We do everything for them. But by the time they're about 18, we're really hoping that they're able to support themselves financially, to build relationships, to take care of their own health, and to make good decisions about their time management. All of that is what happens in that span of childhood. But it happens from the top down. It happens from us teaching, showing, modeling, guiding, coaching, correcting, catching them when they fall, and making sure that they are learning these crucial lessons to lead a good life. Now, most parents today are comfortable saying things like wear a helmet, but they're not necessarily comfortable saying things like lying is wrong. you should be a good friend. Go and visit your friend when they're sick. Or, my love, I know you love guitar, but this is probably not going to be the way that you support yourself in the future. So we do still need to apply ourselves in school. I have this very example in my own household. One of my children is an artist. He has the heart of a musician. He's incredible with a pencil or with a guitar, and it's amazing. And he might be one of the 1% of people who manage to actually make a living through their music and their art. And I really hope that for him, because he would love that. I believe in art and in self-expression. I think it has value beyond its monetary compensation. However, it's my job as the adult to make sure that he can pay his mortgage in the future and that he has options available to him should music not turn out to be the path that holds his family together and puts food on their table. So I'm not going to sit there and be like, who am I to say? As long as he's happy and healthy, he'll figure it out by himself. I don't want him to spend a decade or two chasing his tail, starving artist, unable to put food on the table because no one equipped him and forced him and demanded of him that he develops other skills as well to complement these. I've been around the block. I've seen my friends who are struggling to pay their rent because they're in the arts. And it's not everyone. Some of them do really, really well. And I've gained some awareness and some wisdom of how finances work in this arena. Now, yes, the world might change completely by the time he grows up. That's fair. But it's my job to equip him for every eventuality, for the idea that there may not be any music anymore, or that, yeah, he might be a rock star and bring in millions. This is the point that I'm saying, is that he deserves and needs that leadership, and that's actually my job. It's the uncomfortable side of parenting. Here's the point I started with, and I want to come back to it. If you don't step in with leadership, if you don't tell them right from wrong, what your values are, what your expectations are of your child, if you don't articulate that and make it clear to them that this is the type of life that you want them to live, then someone else will do that for you. It will create a vacuum because children aren't little gurus. No matter what we might think about being self-motivated and intrinsic motivation and their own self and their authentic self and their little voice in their head, no, children are built, they grow, they rise in an environment through their parents, through your modeling, through your attachment, and through vocalizing your expectations of them. So if you don't offer this leadership to them, someone else will. If you don't paint an inspiring vision of the future, if you don't hold up expectations and set standards for behavior that you expect from them, TikTok will happily do it for you. The Kardashians, Instagram, what have you, is going to provide them with an image, with an idol, with something to worship, with a North Star. And it may or may not be in alliance with your values and with your belief system. Inside the studio, I teach you exactly how to become that inspiring leader. And in our first month in the studio, which if you're watching this as it drops, is coming right up in May, we talk all about crafting our vision, getting really clear on why we built this family in the first place and what our values are that we want to portray to our children, that we want to transfer and transmit and embed in them. The programming that we'd like our children to run on. What is the worldview? What are the value systems? What would you like for them in the future? Many people say to me, I don't even know where my children will live in the future. I don't know what they'll do. Let me give you one more example before we wrap. Beyond sharing with my children that I really believe in marriage and I really hope for them that they find a good partner, my husband and I try to outline what is a good partner. How do you know if they're a good partner? How do you date someone with an eye to marry them and to find someone to build a household with? How do you know if this should be the mother or father of your future children? We also try to share with them ideas that can help them in their life. For example, it would be a great idea if eventually you settled near your extended family. Not just because I want to snuggle my grandbabies, but also because it's easier for them to raise their children with the help of grandparents. It would be easier for them and better, yes, I'm making a judgment call, if they married a girl or boy that is not too far from their current home and culture, from their parents' home and culture. Not because couples from cross cultures can't make it, they can, but it presents extra challenges. And I say to my kids, listen, marriage is hard enough as it is. You don't need to make it that bit more complicated. by needing to travel across the world to visit different family members, by needing to bridge massive cultural gaps around holidays or money or eating habits. These are the types of things that I offer my children my perspective on. Now, am I going to force them? No. Am I going to disown them if they don't listen to me? Absolutely not. I will love and accept whatever they end up choosing. But I'm not going to withhold my judgment and my opinion and the guidance and the wisdom that I've earned the hard way in this life, or that I've received, because of political correctness or moral squirmishness, or a sense that every individual is an island and is on their own, and just an absolute adherence to and worship of the individual and personal preference. No, we actually have cracked some codes. The truth is that there aren't endless ways of living a happy and healthy life. If you want your child to be healthy, we kind of know what that entails. It may not be only one way, but it's certainly not more than 50. Like, we can count what those things are. We know that they need to move their bodies. We know that they need to nourish their bodies. We know that they need to sleep. These are things that we do know about health. And we know things about happiness too. We know that you need to find meaning in what you're doing every day, that you need to have deep connections with people around you, and that you need to have love in your life. And so, we are going to offer your children that kind of guidance, because we're not going to leave it up to culture out there to do it for us. I warmly invite you to join the studio. The link to join is below, and the studio only opens once a year. So if this is speaking to your heart, I would love to see you on the inside. By the way, we're about to launch a family reset challenge. It's just 5 days. It's completely free. You can do it with your best friends. And the whole goal of this is to get really clear on 5 family rules that I think every family needs. You're going to get a lot of clarity about your leadership, about where you're taking your children, about how to run your household. And it's a bit of a taster for what's to come inside the studio. So if you like my coaching style and you like this type of content, you're going to love the studio curriculum, the coaching, and the community. And I'll give you the link below to make sure that you're signed up for this free challenge. Can't wait to see you in there. Meanwhile, keep on living that high fam life, and I'll see you in the next video.